What is going on? Happy Thursday, or as happy as you can be. Went to sleep last night, massively in profit. Things looking really good. Woke up today, and everything's in a minus. So we have to play catch up already this morning, which isn't a situation that I like to find myself in too often. So we shall see what happens. We're going to run through a couple of things this morning, run through a couple of possibilities, and see what is what, see what we might have coming into play, and obviously what we just don't have as options, full stop. So there's a few things to kind of have a look at and run through. Obviously, we're starting to get to the point where we are going to see some movements with obviously non-farm payroll coming out tomorrow. Now, Aussie Swiss is one of the pairs that I am personally currently in and am personally currently running in a loss on. Not by much, like literally about 30 pips, I think. But last night, obviously, we saw quite a push down to the downside, and things looked really generally quite positive. It looked as if we might start to see that drive to the downside, lower high created, lower low created. Everything was starting to gear up as if we might potentially see that push to the downside. That hasn't come into play quite clearly. For whatever reason, we have started to see a push back up. Like I say, go to bed last night in profit. Everything's a winner. Come back up, and we are currently running in losses. Now, we've broken above the 80 level, which is somewhere that we didn't really want to break above, and the 90 level that we also have in play. I'm just going to move this up because this is the area that I am most interested in as things currently stand. The previous highs that we have through here obviously are what is presenting us with the potential resistance that we might need to see. Obviously coming up as high as 72.20, but 72 around that whole number is presenting us with an area that we need to see some form of push and movement away from in order for us to want to keep involved in the positions that we are currently in. Now, when we come out to the 4 hours, obviously what we have seen is the possibility for this to be a higher low, and then obviously a break up towards the highs. Now, in a situation like that, you wouldn't normally take a position until the highs have been taken out, or a long position until the highs had been taken out above that 72.80 region that we have in play here at the minute. So until those highs were taken out, it would be pretty illogical to look towards potential long positions. Anything from kind of here upwards, yes, there's still a fair few pips on the table, but we've seen just sharp selling pressure from that area previously. When we look to the left, and we're going to have to look well to the left here to kind of find that same region, because it's been a very long time since we've been trading up at this area. But you can see the 72.80 region has come into play as resistance before. Back at this level, we can also see that it's come pretty close around this level and through these highs. So that 72.60, 72.80, that kind of region is something that we need to be very, very, very mindful of. We're also starting to float around, as I say, this 71.80 region, which has very much been used previously between 72, so the lows through here, the highs through here, the highs through here. This little 20 pip window has been used quite often as a potential range. Now, as things stand on the daily time frame, if we come out and we look all the way to the left, as of recently, since kind of 2019, the price has always traded below this level. So if we were to break back above kind of the 72 region, we start to get back into realms that we haven't really seen since kind of post-Brexit. So we're talking kind of 2017, 2016. Really and truly kind of as far back as 2014, 2015 also. So we're starting to break into what are relatively uncharted territories for us as things stand at the moment. Obviously the pushes up that we have seen are pretty unprecedented, especially when it comes to the Swiss franc, because as a whole it's a relatively stable currency. It's a relatively protected currency. So the fact that we've weakened off to the degree that we have is massively surprising for the pair. I mean, we're talking over 200 pips in the 2,000 pips in the last 12 months. That's massive for a pair such as Aussie Swiss, where it doesn't really have those moves. It doesn't really have those windows. If we were to take a look and go in from like a relatively average daily trading range, you can see all the way through here that an average day would typically consist of around 60 pips. You might get as much as kind of 70 if you were lucky, if you were seeing big days, big ambitious days. What we're seeing at the moment are kind of 100 pip days. So the average trading range at the moment for the pair has massively increased. We're looking at almost kind of a 25% increase on what the average daily volume is at the moment, and we're starting to see some crazy movements. We've obviously just seen it spike a little bit there. We're just going to have to wait and see how things progress with the pair as the morning goes through. The stop loss on the pair at the moment is at 72.20, so we shall wait and see what happens. As I say, it's a relatively small risk, 1% spread over two positions, so it's not the end of the world. Regarding what happens, we just need to be very, very mindful and keep watch and keep an eye on what's going on and what the potential for that pair is. I mean, surrounding a few pairs today, there's obviously OPEC meetings that we do need to be a little bit mindful of and a little bit wary of. So those things will come into play at some point, I'm sure, and we will need to keep watch as those things progress. But as things stand currently, there's no real fundamentals to be overly mindful of. I think this Aussie dollar Swiss pair, so this dollar Swiss that's broken up this far at the moment, is just seeing a spike into this previous region, the one that we've just spoken about. So we will just keep mindful and keep a watch on how things progress with it as things stand at the moment. If we do reject away from this region, if we can see a pushback down to 71.80, I'm not ruling out the possibility of adding a position to the pair if we can break back below the kind of 70 region. But obviously, as things stand at the moment, we're a little way off of that. So we can't count chickens just yet when it comes to those types of movements. Dollar yen. Break above 107 has now happened. We've come back, we've retested the area of breakout, and we're on our movement again. Missed the potential entry yesterday, which is mad because I was actually triggered into the position and I closed for a very small loss on the pullback. And in hindsight, I should have held that out, should have held the nerve and waited on that. However, the expectation kind of changed a little bit. We started to see a bit of momentum come back into the shorter side. And given the drive that we've seen to the upside, with very little or little to no actual correction. Seeing that push to the downside just kind of unsettled the nerves a little bit, made me think that we might actually see a little bit of yen strength come in, a little bit of a resurgence, but that doesn't seem to have occurred. So we will keep watch and be very mindful. I think, to be honest, unless you're in from 107 now, then the position has passed us by. There's no possible place to gain a solid entry now until 108 is taken out. You can see we've now broken above the highs at 107. So until that 108 region is tested and taken out, I personally feel like the entry has passed us by. There's no point getting involved at 107.50. So we shall just have to sit on the sidelines with this one, sit on our hands and be a little bit patient. Unless you're in it, then obviously, like I say, fair play. You can ride that through to 108. That looks like the highest probability as things stand currently. We are certainly in the realms of keeping up with this bullish momentum at the moment. If this continues and obviously we see positive NFP tomorrow, then the possibilities for dollar strength seem pretty endless. Dollar CAD, the long here does interest me. This is probably the one with the most potential going into this morning. We've seen these new swings and we're starting to see the fresh swing low come into play as at the moment. We would need to break back above kind of 26.60, but above there I do quite like the long back up. Like I said yesterday morning, we were looking for that potential drive into 120, 128, that kind of area, even as high as 129. So I do very much still hold out a little bit of hope for that. I do think that that has some potential. Yesterday's daily close relatively positive for the dollar. We just need to break back above these previous highs and I think we would be well and truly on our way. The hourly looks to be setting up lovely for those potential new swings coming into play, and to see, like I say, ultimately a run back towards 128 around 129. The one thing to be mindful of obviously at the moment is the fact that we are just caught very much sideways. It seems as if the market is very much waiting for tomorrow. A lot of movements this week have been very, very choppy, with not a huge amount of movement, bar obviously gold, but that's a law upon itself. But there's not been huge movements in any real direction for a lot of pairs. So we are kind of anticipating, we are kind of expecting that tomorrow's fundamentals will drive things on. Obviously, like the first day or two of a new month can always be a little bit weird anyway. But the fact is that there's not really been anything that's pushed on. There's just been a lot of kind of 20, 30 pip movements and then not really doing a lot from there. So we can expect to see some big liquidity come into the market around non-farm payroll tomorrow and obviously CAD employment rates that also come out on that Friday. So this pair in itself could go one of two ways. Either one of these currencies is going to strengthen up against the other, and we're going to see some major pushes, or both are going to have relatively positive or relatively weak data come out and they're going to cancel each other out. We just see some massive spikes, and then the pair not really do much or do anything after that. So it's one of those situations that we're going to have to wait and see what non-farm payroll brings. I feel like this week might get chalked off as a loss, if I'm honest. It's not overly working out in certainly my favour. There's been some positions, but everything that we're planning at the moment, everything we're looking for, everything we're keeping an eye on and looking at just isn't coming into fruition at the moment. We're even not getting triggered into our entries. Or like I say, we are getting triggered and having to close very early for small losses. Certainly surrounding the Swiss franc pairs. They saw so much momentum last week, and that has been absolutely swept from under its feet. So the dollar seems to be gaining its strength that we were looking for, which is obviously a positive. It means that we might get a push towards the last couple of days of this week, and giving ourselves some potential positions to take. So dollar CAD, as I say, I would want to get back above 26.60, but from there, definitely got a potential for that long position. Just want to have a flick through, have a look at a couple of things. Euro yen. The euro in itself, it doesn't really seem to be too weak, but doesn't seem to be too strong. There seems to just be a lot of, again, sideways movement. I mean, obviously, dollar yen, we know, gets a little bit trapped as itself anyway, and tends not to really go anywhere. Has a little drop, then not go anywhere, then has another little drop. So there's a few things around that obviously we do need to be a little bit mindful and a little bit careful of. Euro yen, I really liked the look of. Last night it looked like a really positive potential position. This morning it started to swing back towards the downside, but we actually haven't really pushed on or done anything since. And euro dollar, as I say, the dollar seems like it's gaining its strength back this morning. However, obviously, we saw a similar thing yesterday where the dollar looked to strengthen up and then almost immediately weakened off on the London Open and then took time to strengthen back up again. It wasn't until kind of mid-afternoon. So we are very much still just trapped in a lot of sideways movement, a lot of sideways momentum on the pair as things stand currently. We're not really seeing anything too much in either direction as we stand. So we just need to be very, very mindful of that and the potentials surrounding that at the moment. Obviously, euro yen. We've seen the yen weaken off as we've seen the euro session open. So euro yen, pound yen, dollar yen, we've all seen those move. Pound yen looks to be rejecting as things stand, so we will just see how that plays out into this morning. But yeah, we've seen the CAD, the Swiss franc just weaken off completely across the board. Having a quick flick through that pair, that currency has just massively weakened off completely across board so far this morning. So we shall have to wait that out and see what happens. Euro dollar though, we've obviously been champion for quite a while. The potential to break back below 20.30. I think if we get that now, we look in a much better position to be able to break those lows, and obviously take the potential position to the downside on that as it presents itself to us. So I think that is something that we do need to be very, very mindful of and aware of as we move into today. The euro doesn't seem particularly strong. Obviously, the Swiss franc we know isn't very strong. That's taken a bit of a battering. So we shall keep an eye on this. There's definitely potential surrounding Euro USD. Whether Euro Yen looks quite so positive and comes back in to play later on remains to be seen. I think with Euro Yen, a lot hinges around 129. But if we take a little look, what we can see with the yen at the moment is that the yen had its little strength but seems to be weakening enough. So I think pops below 129 for Euro Yen are certainly going to open up a lot of potential positions for us. There is no Euro fundamentals or data out, and the OPEC news shouldn't really affect the Euro at all either. So we have potentials on Euro Dollar and Euro Yen, and I would hazard a guess and to go as far as to say that Euro New Zealand below 165.50 also presents a potential opportunity for us too. That's definitely something to be mindful of a break of that consolidation. So potential surrounding dollar strength as we move into this morning. Obviously, dollar CAD is moving on. Dollar yen, we've seen that push. I'm hesitant when it comes to a dollar yen position at the moment. One, I feel like their best entry has been missed from 106.70. Not only that, obviously, from 107, should I say, sorry. But not only that, obviously, we've seen the yen start to weaken off across the board. So that is something to be very mindful of. CAD Swiss, obviously we've seen the Swiss weaken off now. As I say, we had the potential to enter yesterday above the highs. We've broken through yesterday afternoon, come back retested, broken back through this morning. It would have been nice to have gained an entry somewhere around about 72.80 with the potential long, but as I say, that's completely out of the window now. And the fact that obviously the dollar is strengthening up against the CAD also is something to be a little bit mindful of. So there's a few warning signs and alarm bells to be mindful of as we go into this pair at the moment. I'm not particularly comfortable or particularly positive on the fact of this Swiss weakness. I think I'm going to have a little session this morning of just running through some data surrounding the Swiss franc and just seeing really where the basis for the weakness is coming from. I don't like feeling like I'm missing something when it comes to the amount of weakness that we are seeing on a pair like that. Something that's so well relatively protected, it just doesn't seem to make much sense at the moment. But we will keep an eye, we will watch, and like I say, we will go from there just to kind of see how things are progressing, how things are moving, and obviously what we may or may not see surrounding potential movements, certainly with that pair. Pound New Zealand, we've just seen a little spike on Pound New Zealand. That's steadily been dropping since yesterday's movement on the rate decision. So we will continue to watch and see how that progresses throughout this morning. I do really quite like the potential for a Pound New Zealand short, which won't surprise anybody because it's a pair that I trade quite often. We're finding some support around a region that we would have expected to anyway, with a potential breakout area that the potential area of breakout that we saw from yesterday's fundamentals. If we, however, can break back below that region, let's say that we were to be able to get back below the resistance that we are currently seeing at 91.80, then I do believe that we start to push back down towards the previous lows at 190. So something to be mindful of, something to keep an eye on. Obviously, the support that we are currently seeing isn't entirely unexpected. That's not anything new. So as we move throughout this morning, we shall just see how we keep going. I think as things currently stand with the pair, I would be very, very interested in the potential shorts below 91.80, or obviously if we can take out the highs at 92.80, then obviously we'll look towards 94. There's still a good couple of hundred pips in this pair this week, so we'd be very mindful of what happens. I know that pound yen looked quite nice for the potential short. That seems to have just kind of fizzled itself out so far, which means I imagine that euro yen is also looking to have fizzled out a little bit. Still looks relatively positive, to be fair. So we shall just have to wait and see what the London Open brings. I think that will bring a bit of an influx. We'll probably see pound yen, pound New Zealand push back to the upside a little bit before seeing the potential. We're starting to see at the moment that it's not until kind of around about 10 o'clock that we're starting to see real movements come into the market and things to start to settle down a little bit. So we will probably see much of the similar today, where we're just going to need to wait it out for a couple of hours before we start to jump into potential positions. Gold. Obviously, we've had some relative success with gold. We called the push back down into 117 earlier in the week, and obviously we have started to see that occur. Get rid. It's not relevant to us. Obviously, at the moment, what we're doing is just toying around with this previous area of resistance, previous area of support, looking at it for potential resistance zones. I personally feel like the pair is certainly not done for the week, but I think that I am done with the pair for the week. The short, obviously, with the potential for like dollar CAD, dollar yen to be strengthening up, we're starting to see some strength come back into the dollar this morning. We should obviously euro dollar also. We shall need to wait things out and see, be a little bit mindful of the potential for some dollar strength. But as things currently stand, I'm not particularly sold on the fact that the dollar is going to run riot or become hugely strong against gold as things currently stand. I think the way things are setting up on the pair at the moment, we're much more likely to just find some consolidation. Now, the area that we're in currently between 1708 and 1720 looks to be a pretty good region. Obviously, that's a fairly big range. It's about 120 pips. But I wouldn't be too surprised to just see some consolidation through that area at the moment. Breaks above 1720 would be interesting to see the potential for 11740 again. Never going to turn down 200 pips. However, until either 117 is broken, I don't think I want to be looking at any potential downside positions. Aussie dollar. Something that I've been keeping an eye on throughout this week, just because we've started to break back below 72.80, which is obviously a key and significant area for the pair. We've come back and retested that level. I was hoping to see some weakness come into this and obviously see the dollar gain some strength. As we started to see the dollar gain strength yesterday, obviously we saw Aussie Swiss in a reaction to that also. So it was dropping down the Aussie Swiss position that I was involved in. Also, obviously, Aussie dollar, Euro USD and dollar yen all seem to move in very similar kind of styles and fashions. So we were starting to see obviously the dollar strengthen up yesterday against the yen. We started to see Euro dollar weaken off a little bit. All these things were kind of coming into unison. We'd seen that strengthen up overnight. We could well see a retest of these lows at some point today. What happens around those lows will be massively significant. That will obviously give us an indication of where price may be heading as we move on through today. The potential obviously to break back down below 77.50 could open the floodgates for a good solid 100 pip move. And we could well see that across the board with the Aussie dollar. Obviously, the Aussie dollar has been very, very strong, but we could potentially see that start to weaken off across the board. If we do see, obviously, Aussie dollar strength come into play, we should see a similar thing occur with the euro. It should drive Aussie Swiss back down to the downside. Also, one thing I do want to have a look at is the potential for a New Zealand Swiss position. Just want to come out, have a look. We can see obviously with almost every Swiss pair last week, we saw massive weakness. Huge amounts of selling pressure come in at the end of last week. Away from pretty significant regions also, you can see the support region that we had through here. So the selling pressure that came in from there was really quite massive. We broken up, we closed back below, seen that push down. Now we're retesting that region at the moment, and it would be very interesting to see how we respond. If we fail to break above that region, not only on New Zealand Swiss but also Aussie Swiss, if we come out, have a little look. We're starting to find really quite significant regions on the pair that we're starting to test and looking to break away from. You can start to see the support region through here. I don't know what colour that, yeah, green will do. Starting to see the support region through here, 72.50, this kind of area that we have rejected from so many times and also used as resistance previously. It's also where we rejected from last week. So again, we may see a push back into that region. We're not going to rule that out, and that we shall see how things fare from there. As things currently stand, if we come to the 4-hour time frame on the pair, as I say, we still haven't broken the previous highs. So this set isn't complete. If we were to see a failure to break the highs at any point, obviously, then we could see a crash come in and the Swiss franc to strengthen up. Just seeing what the initial reactions to the first 5 minutes of the London session are. Looking for the dollar to strengthen up by the looks of things. Oh, it would help if I learned to spell properly. So obviously we've seen a little bit of weakness come into the pound across pound New Zealand, pound yen. We see a little resurgence. I think we're popped back up to like 149.70. Pop back up to at least 92.10. And then obviously if we reject from there, that might give us a good indication that we're heading towards that downside movement. Obviously gold has kicked on for about 40 pips already since we spoke about it a couple of minutes ago. The euro looks to be weakening off a little bit, as we saw on the Euro Open. I imagine Aussie Swiss is starting to push back towards the highs. So we've got there's a fair bit of potential still available to us this week. I think the dollar strength presents the best option for value at the moment. However, I'm not sold on potential gold shorts any longer, just because we're at quite a significant level. Euro weakness looks quite probable, as does the potential for the pound. However, obviously, with the pound currently, as things are standing, we have it surrounding some pretty significant and key levels. So we could well see just retests of the area breakout from yesterday surrounding the pound and the pushes to the upside. However, if those areas of breakout are broken and we pop back below, then obviously we should see potential downside movement. Swiss franc still looks like it's the whipping boy at the moment, but that could change the first couple of hours of today. Like I say, there's no real fundamentals apart from the OPEC stuff a little bit later on. So we do just need to be mindful of that. Certainly surrounding the New Zealand dollar. Yen also will be affected, and obviously massively the Canadian dollar also. But yeah, apart from that, there's not really a lot going on today. So we should hopefully just see some fundamentals come into play and hopefully some positions start to break our way. Whatever you're up to, have a good day. Stay safe, be sensible. And I'll catch up with people later on.